impeccable timing. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Ossining Legislative Session for Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's so nice to hear all those voices in person again.
Okay. Councilmember Wiltshire?
Present.
Councilmember Meyer?
Present.
Councilmember Shaw?
Present.
Councilmember Feldman?
Present.
Supervisor Levenberg?
Here I am. Thank you. I'm going to start off with some announcements. We have had quite the soggy start to our summer. We had to reschedule our first two summer concert series performances due to weather. The Thornwoods, who were originally supposed to perform on July 2nd, have been rescheduled for Sunday, July 25th, and the Sleepy Hollow String Band, who were scheduled to perform last Friday, July 9th, have been rescheduled for Sunday, August 8th. Both rain date performances will start at 5 p.m. Right now, the weather gods are looking more favorably upon us for Friday, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we can officially kick off our summer concert series with Ossining local and favorite KJ Dennert on Friday, July 16th. The concert will be starting at 7, but make sure to get there a little earlier for food trucks and our new craft beverage corral service starting at 5 p.m. Thank you to our amazing summer concerts and food truck Fridays planning team of the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce, Sing Sing Hill Brewery, Mike and Miriam Risco, and Superintendent of Recreation and Parks Bill Garrison. We've gotten off to a bit of a bumpy start, but hoping for better weather for the rest of the summer. We hope to see you there. The villages of Ossining and Briarcliff Manor also have great summer entertainment series scheduled. Ossining's Family Summer Entertainment Series shows are every Tuesday at 7 p.m., rotating between a few Village of Ossining parks. If you're joining us live tonight, you're missing the Westchester Dance Artists at Market Square. But the good news is, with our town board meeting canceled for next Tuesday, July 20th, none of us are going to miss Macaroni the Clown, also at Market Square, starting at 7 p.m. On Wednesdays, also at 7 p.m., the Summer Acoustic Series is taking place at Market Square in Ossining. Tomorrow, July 14th, will be Better Late Than Never, and next Wednesday, July 21st, will be Sundad. The Briarcliff Chamber of Commerce is also bringing on the summer fun with their summer concert series at Law Park Field on Sundays at 7 p.m. This Sunday, July 18th, is Off the Record, and next Sunday, July 25th, is Sky Factor. Is that right? I thought they were Thursdays for some reason. I'm looking at the Village of Briarcliff. They're Sundays? Sunday concerts? Totally thought it was Thursdays. Okay. They're so much fun. Sky Factor was with us last year for part of our remote concert series during the pandemic. I can't wait to see them in person once I find out if it's Thursday or Sunday. So much music, so little time. It's definitely Sunday, Victoria Caffarelli? Okay, it's definitely Sunday. Okay, Sunday it is. Changed it. Okay. The community equity, and we didn't just say that because we have our friends from Village of Briarcliff Manor here tonight. We always talk about your stuff. Okay. The Community Equity Task Force has reopened their survey to encourage residents to share their thoughts about inequity in Ossining. The survey was shared in my supervisor's update on Friday and on the Equity Facebook page. This survey is also used by the task force to pinpoint areas for further attention. There are spaces for residents to provide free-form answers and shorter answer options. Please take the survey and share it. Residents who completed the 2020 survey are encouraged to update the task force by completing it again in 2021. Due to the rainy weather we've been experiencing for several days now, the Cedar Lane Dog Park and Pavilion will be closed again this week to allow for crews to repave the access road to these sites. We're excited to see this road get some attention, planned originally to happen during the pandemic, but postponed for that reason. And we hope our furry friends will try the dog run at Ryder Park while this project gets completed. The paving is weather dependent, so we will announce a tentative reopening date when it becomes available, but we are hoping that the work is completed by Thursday. The Ossining Elks Club is hosting the Big Dog Challenge on Saturday, July 17th at 2 p.m. Word on Twitter is there may be a showdown between Ossining Police Chief Kevin Sylvester and Ossining School Superintendent Dr. Ray Sanchez for this epic hot dog eating contest. It is not about big dogs that you like to pat. If you want in, it costs $25 to enter and call ahead to reserve your spot at 914-941-1486. Do they have veggie dogs? Okay, not sure. Not sure. Okay. Sing
Johnny's
Sing.
there, they might.
They might have. Okay. Sing Sing Prison Museum's Justice Talks webinar series brings amazing conversations to Austin, and the next installment promises to be the same, just as amazing. Next Thursday, July 22nd at 6 p.m. The webinar topic will be on the 1971 Attica prison uprising, which brought issues of injustice inside U.S. prisons into the national spotlight. In this program, Sing Sing Prison Museum will examine racial justice activism, civil rights, and the significance of the 50th anniversary of the uprising. Register at singsingprisonmuseum.org. Chatham Yacht Club is hosting their annual Women's Kayak Day on Sunday, July 25th at 9 a.m. I think they say men can still come, even though it's, Women's Kayak Day, but come on down to support the SPCA of Westchester. Bring your kayak, canoe, or paddleboard for a $25 all-inclusive drinks and food day of fun, fun, fun. RSVP to Day D'Souza at 914-755-6292. Steve Vesio, I see that you are writing that down, so thank you. And or by email at docmasteryc at hotmail.com. I can't wait to see you all. I will be there. As a reminder, if you are a student entering college in the fall, now is the time to get vaccinated against COVID-19 prior to the start of the fall semester. With the waiting time between doses for Moderna and Pfizer, plus 14 days to reach full immunity, July is just about it for your deadline to get the COVID-19 vaccine checked off your pre-college to-do list. The good news is the Austin Volunteer Ambulance Corps makes it extremely easy to get vaccinated. Tomorrow, Wednesday, July 14th, Thursday, July 15th, and Friday, July 16th, vaccines will be available at OVAC headquarters at 8 Clinton Avenue from 12 noon to 6 p.m. Walk-ins are accepted for all of these dates, but you can make an appointment in advance by visiting the OVAC Facebook page. If you have questions about the vaccine, OVAC EMTs are happy to answer them. If you email covidtest@austinvac.org. For younger students, there are several other vaccines required for a child to enter school. The Westchester County Department of Health is offering back-to-school immunizations every Friday at their 134 Court Street Clinic in White Plains. Appointments are available from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Fridays through August 27th. Call 995-5800 to find out if you qualify and make an appointment. I know I just threw out a lot of dates and events, and believe me, there is much more going on in our community beyond what I share in my announcements and updates. Make sure you don't miss any Austin events by signing up for the community calendar updates from burbio.com. Visit the Town of Austin website, www.townofaustin.com. Visit the community calendar page to see more events going on and sign up for weekly email updates. Burbio pulls from multiple calendars throughout the community and county, so you really can get a great sense of what is going on. And that's it for me. Do my colleagues have anything to add? Good, good. All good? All right, fantastic. Announcements done, and we move to, are there any liaison reports? And hearing and seeing none, we're going to move into our work session agenda because we have reduced the number of meetings that we have. This summer, we've added work sessions to our legislative sessions and legislative special meetings to our work session agendas, and we're trying to cram it all in. So thanks for being patient with us and participating. So first up on our work session agenda, we have a few special guests from our neighbors in Briarcliff Manor. We have Mayor Steve Vesio and Trustee Peter Chatsky joining us via Zoom to present a proposal that the town enact a tax incentive for commercial property development in the village of Briarcliff Manor. It's actually availing ourselves of a state law. And that would align with a local law that was adopted by both the village of Briarcliff and a resolution adopted by the Austin Union Free School District. I'll turn it over to Mayor Vesio and Trustee Chatsky to explain in more detail. We're happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Levenberg, and thank you to the Austin Town Board of Trustees for having us here this evening and for all your great work on behalf of all of your residents, which includes myself and Deputy Mayor Chatsky as town residents. We're here tonight to talk about our commercial tax incentive program, which is really something that has been on our books for a long time, and we recently reinvigorated as part of our B zone, which is our commercial zone in Briarcliff, the corporate campuses. A lot of them have sat dormant, and we're trying to reactivate them with good commercial uses that are fitting with the neighborhood, that are going to provide a good additional tax base. For those who are unaware, 95% plus of Briarcliff's land is zoned residential, so we have very little commercial tax base. Residential taxes and residential taxpayers typically have a higher impact on municipal services than commercial taxpayers do. So we always want to look at the costs associated with the tax revenue. If it's $1 million in the door, we can't just look at there's $1 million of additional revenue and say, what does it cost us services that we have to provide to gain that $1 million in tax revenue? So we don't always want to look at the most tax revenue, we want to look at the best kind of tax revenue. And that even if it's $800,000 in tax revenue, we still are getting more because there's such nominal impact on services that we provide. And I think that's really a critical way to look at it. Without a healthy mix of commercial and residential taxpayers, there'll be increased demand on all services and ultimately higher taxes. So we signed on with this and changed our law back in December. And since then, the Briarcliff Manor schools and the Austin schools have signed on as well. And we're hoping that the town will sign on, and we're going to ask the town of Mount Pleasant to sign on, and we're also going to ask Westchester County to sign on so that we can provide as much incentive for commercial development. This law applies not only in our B zone, our new CT zone, but also in our downtown, because we do want to reinvigorate that as well with new attractive commercial uses. So Deputy Mayor Chatsky will go into some of the specifics, but so far we're very encouraged. We've seen some very positive signs from the market already after only 7 months of the law being enacted. A lot more interest has been sparked, and we're hopeful that we're going to see some things come to fruition in the next in the short duration here. Deputy Mayor Chatsky, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank all of you for having us here tonight. I must start by saying it's really weird to be on this side of the table again. We're usually sitting where you are, and with that in mind, Steve and I are both aware that the last thing you want is a special guest that's going to talk on and on and on. So I promise we will do this as quickly and painlessly as possible. Can I share my screen? Is that fine?
Sure.
Is this looking good?
It is.
And can you all hear me fine?
Yep, pretty good.
And does my hair look okay?
Well,
Great.
there's a couple of ones out of place, but otherwise, yeah.
Big things I care about. Okay, so this is actually a modified version of the presentation we did for both school boards, which is like dated September, but I did go through this morning to make sure it's still all up to date. I'm not. Where is my thing? So we are talking about the. Let me just move this out of my way. Sorry. We're talking about the 5 CT zone properties that are in Briarcliff Manor, as well as the Central Business District, all of which are impacted by this new law. You all may know, I don't know how familiar you are with the CT zones. These were formerly the B zone and BT zone properties in Briarcliff. They're mostly corporate campus properties, each of which is 10 acres or more. They are the Walsh Phillips property, the Sony property on Route 9, what's now a data center on Route 9, one at 555 Pleasantville Road, which doesn't impact you, and the last one is at 320 Old Briarcliff Road, which used to be the Merrill Building. As the mayor mentioned, only 6% of our village is zoned for commercial use, so it's one of the smallest in Westchester County, and it's important we reinvigorate this and get as many significant tax dollars we can out of these properties at the least cost to residents. So the first thing we did is we took a look at all the former B zone properties. They were really only legal for single tenant office buildings, some lab and research space, and by special permit, multi-tenant office use. They have largely sat vacant for many, many years, some of them as many as I think 10 years. We introduced about 15 additional uses for these properties. They're all pretty modern uses, so we have things like data storage, conference center, event space, fitness clubs, training facilities, small medical buildings, even small hotels are a possibility there. And by expanding these uses, this is the first attempt we have to solicit a lot more interest. Each property in the CT zone allows a subset of the list that I just showed you. So we're able to tailor specific uses that make sense based on, for example, road access, how close it is to neighboring communities, residential communities, potential impacts on the village. They can be very carefully tailored, and because in all cases it goes through a special use permit process, we are maximizing the powers of the planning board to control and reduce impacts. We have, I believe I sent you all this, we did an explanatory 3-minute video for residents, which by the way was very effective. Residents loved watching a cartoon that explained the entire process. We have a really good lead. If you guys want to do that yourselves, I'll be in touch. We put out a primer for the whole CT process we went through. Our board has been doing a lot in plain English summaries when we pass significant legislation, which has been very helpful. And we have, of course, copies of all proposed amendments, zoning chapters, and our comprehensive plan on our website. All those things are available on our website under current topics. I believe it's still under current topics. There's a section for CT zone. So after tonight's presentation, if you want to go back in and look at any more details, it's all on our website. And again, that's www.barringtonmanor.com. So let's talk about the current tax program. There is a New York State law, which is section 485B of the real property tax law, which allows municipalities to provide a gradual phase-in for taxes. So when someone improves their property, typically the way this works today is they're hit with a tremendous increase in the tax burden. What 485B allows communities to do is to phase in over 10 years the increased assessment value of the property. And the way it works is in the first year you get hit with 50%, and then it's 5% each additional year. So if you're a developer and you're socking millions of dollars into a project, you get the benefit of 10 years until you feel the full increase in the tax assessment. Barclays adopted the 485B program back in '76, and like most surrounding communities, the first thing they did was erase all of that benefit. So like you, we had a section in our code which basically set the table instead of 50% first year, 5% year after, just said 0. And by doing that, we have the situation we're in today, most communities, which is that when there's an increase in the assessed value, a property owner gets hit with it immediately. So you guys did what Briarcliff did back in '76. You wiped out the exemption, and the reasoning was, I'm guessing, back then there was little need to sort of provide incentive for commercial use coming out to suburbia. We, in our 5 commercial campus properties, were all booked pretty quickly without offering any tax breaks at all. The proposed tax law, as I've just explained, spreads it out over 10 years. So again, the first year after an investment of at least $50,000 in an improvement in construction, renovations, alterations, the property owner is only hit with 50% of the increase in the assessed value. And then 5% more each year after, until at year 10, they're paying exactly the taxes they would be paying, the full-blown effect of the increased assessed value. One very important thing here is that unlike pilot programs, which have a similar arrangement where it's an alternate schedule for paying taxes, pilot programs tend to have a negative impact on tax cap calculations, whereas all this is doing is it's treated just like additional income. It doesn't impact your 2% limit. It's just additional revenue to the municipality. We okay on that? Am I going fast fast enough, too fast,
Can,
too slow?
I'm sorry, can I just ask a question about that particular last statement that you made, just additional revenue? So, but basically, it's just additional assessed value. So the assessed value is what's coming on slowly.
Correct. So if, and we'll get to an example in a second, and I'll explain it, but yes, it's just the assessed value is coming out a little more slowly. And there's never the case where you're losing money here, you're just gaining additional income at a slightly slower rate. That's a key take.
Again, it's not additional income, it's additional assessed value. I only say that because, the income is based on whatever you're gonna levy, correct? So if you're,
It's certainly possible that you could have increased assessed value and you could decide to reduce your tax rate significantly. But again, whereas your taxes would be going down, they're not gonna be going down, I guess, at the full assessed value. I actually have to think about how that works.
okay,
Let me stick with the simple case for a second. What this chart is showing is a simple case where a commercial property owner replaces windows, upgrades HVAC, replaces some lighting. He creates $1 million in increased assessed value. This is showing 3 lines. The first one, the bottom line, if he hadn't done any improvement at all, I guess this is about a $4 million. He would be paying $120,000 in taxes, and this would just go up slightly, probably 2% a year is the estimate over the next 10 years. Today, before this tax incentive program, the property owner would see a steep jump. You see there's an increase of about $40,000 because an additional $1 million increase, all in, I'm talking about all property value, all property taxes, would increase by about $40,000. And then every year thereafter, again, it would go up about 2%. With this plan, you're gonna sort of split the difference. You only see half the normal increase in the first year, and then again, it's gonna rise on a scale, slightly more than 2% a year because you're picking up more than 5%. You're picking up an additional 5% of the assessed value each year. So this line will never quite hit the top line that you would have today, but it continues to increase at the same slope, actually 5% higher than the typical slope, and it again just increases revenue to the town.
And it's essentially a hypothetical increase because right now there's no incentive for anybody to do anything in these commercial properties. They're just simply sitting idle and kind of wasting away. So the improved current law, really you're never going to see that increase because there's no real incentive.
And also I should point out that bottom line, which is, again, they do absolutely nothing at all, it's showing a steady increase. We found that that turns out to be not even close to true because if something is just sitting there for 10 years idle and it's a commercial property, more than likely they're gonna file a grievance. And what you're gonna see is that line's actually gonna go down. We've seen that all over the place. Okay? So let's just talk about what we're looking to do here. Originally, this pie is showing for complete property taxes on any property, there's about an 18% share that's coming to the Village of Briarcliff. 68% is going to schools, whether it's Austin or Briarcliff, it's pretty close. And the remaining 14% goes to the town and the county. I actually don't know off the top of my head what that breakdown is. You may know it better than I do, but the total remainder of the pie is town and county. I think you are roughly
8%.
10% and county is 4%, but I'm not positive. You may know this better.
I think it's,
What we did right away, recognizing that if you took 18% of property tax and offered some tax, plan, a developer is not gonna be very excited about that. So we quickly worked with the schools, we explained what we were trying to do, we explained the advantage, certainly the advantage to schools, to bring in commercial revenue that's not gonna have any expenses really on schools, it's just money coming in. These are, no students, obviously, no student population, typically on a commercial use. So we got immediately the additional 68% from each of the other school districts because they piggyback onto our plan. So today, what we do is we present to a property owner, we can take your tax bill, your tax burden, and take 76% of it would be subject to this discount. And what we're looking to do, the reason we're 86%. What we're looking to do with meeting with you is to grab another piece of the disabled pie. And then as Steve mentioned, we're also gonna talk to the town of Mount Pleasant, and we're gonna talk to the county to see if we can get everybody on. If you look at the New York State Real Property Tax, Section 485B, it explains that any county, city, town may by local law establish a date for the commencement of the effectiveness of exemptions. So that basically means all you need to do is you change your local law to say, as of this date, we are taking advantage of the 485B business investment exemption. And that creates that table whereby the first year you're only hit, a property owner only hit with 50% of the increase in assessed value and 5% each additional year. It's very simple, and I sent you a draft copy of the changes I would propose you make to your, I think it's chapter 180, to accomplish this. It's so simple, even a non-lawyer could do it, which is something they say on the board all the time. I'm just gonna move on to so simply, you need to replace your current chapter 180, which I think basically the paragraph you're seeing right there is everything that's in 180-11. If you read that quickly, you'll see all it's doing is wiping out what would otherwise be provided in 285B. So you're gonna erase that, and you're gonna replace it with this table, which again is the standard New York State table. And finally, you're gonna define which qualifying districts such an exemption, such a phasing of the taxes are going to apply. What you're seeing listed here are the 7 districts we use in the village of Briarcliff, our 5 CT zones, and our 2 central business districts. So it's very possible that the town will look at this and say, this is an awesome idea, we also wanna do it here, here. We might wanna do this in, your 27 and whatever it is, district, North State Road, if you wanna encourage more, even more commercial use there. It's just a way of providing an incentive to get good investment in your community, because developers do not like paying taxes, and they love, getting a good, return on their investment. So again, the partnership we're proposing here is to take the 86% that we have in place today, grab more 14% along with the county, so that we're covering the entire piece of the pie. Let's just talk very quickly. Next steps, they would be to review the proposed code draft that I sent you for your chapter 180, which I'm happy to send again. Quickly adopt that to attract new business opportunities. Step 3 would be to publicly mock Newcastle and Tarrytown for not implementing a similar strategy, because, you know, Austin is such a better town. And then if you have additional comments, questions, concerns, you can simply reach out to us at EOTM.
Can we mock them after our, can we mock them after our spaces are filled, please?
Yeah, you can actually mock them at any time. These don't have to be done in order, but it's once you're bringing it all through.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that step-by-step how-to of implementing a local law for the benefit of your specific commercial zones. That was really helpful and definitely very easy to follow, so I appreciate it. I'm not sure if our council, Tom and Donna, were you able? Because it was a little below your head. Okay, so let me just open it up to the board for discussion, comments, questions. I have a few questions, but I'd love to hear from any of you first if you think that you have some questions.
Nope.
Question?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, questions?
I'm all for it. I'm interested in how have any of your existing businesses taken advantage of it? How has it benefited them? And it sounds like a good boon, something to help our existing businesses especially after the pandemic. So I'm interested to hear more about that.
Part of the reason we also included the central business district their storefronts and the facades of their buildings. And we found that this would be a good way to encourage it. We've had several people inquire. We have one property looks like it's going to undergo a redevelopment with some commercial use on the first floor, which is going to qualify. And I think we'll have a few more after that. We just enacted this late December. So with the pandemic really going in full force until April, we're starting to see some stuff kind of pop now.
And one of the CT zone properties we have had, and it literally sat idle for, I don't know how many years. Steve, do you know?
5 years.
5 years, nothing happening there at all. We have spoken to 3 potential buyers. We did do a press release on this, which I think probably helped with it. 2 of those buyers specifically mentioned the tax incentive, caught their eye, and they took a look at this. So that was the best possible feedback we could have.
I mean, mine were similar, just what types of business uses do you anticipate? You spoke a little bit about that in the different listing that you gave, but I'm just curious what you're maybe hoping for or what you're expecting for maybe for some of the larger properties, obviously not for your, I mean, you could talk about the downtown too.
I mean, what we're really hoping for is good commercial neighbors, similar to what we've had there since the 1960s. Businesses that are going to operate and really not be a nuisance to the neighbors. It's nice to have businesses that operate Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, when most people are, under normal circumstances, typically at the office. They're basically empty properties on nights and weekends, but still paying taxes. Since there's no specific commitments, I don't want to really, talk about any of the possible uses that have come in, but I will say it's been very encouraging.
Okay.
We're open to a lot of different uses as to be considered, as you saw under the list
Mhm.
that we proposed. They're all under special use, so they get a high level of scrutiny. But we really tried to cut across a lot of commercial categories, and then we also introduced the concept of a mixed commercial development. So if you wanted to have a little bit of medical office and a little bit of retail and maybe a gym, some light manufacturing in there, we'll consider it.
What we did also, if you look at the 15, 16, 17 current uses, there is sort of a direct correlation between how much disturbance it creates and how much it involves the community. So something like a fitness center, which would have a lot more traffic than, for example, a data center. Fitness center is more likely going to excite and involve the residents who live nearby and who would benefit. I don't think there are a lot of residents that necessarily benefit from the data center on this. But there's that kind of trade-off that we allow more commercial uses that might generate traffic or make a little more noise, like a nursery school. Those things are directly going to benefit more likely surrounding neighbors than the sort of quieter uses like a data center, which we will allow obviously to come in. That's a great use, but it's not really tied into the needs of the community.
Right. And I talked a little bit with our assessor about this, and he just had given a couple of thoughts for the board's consideration. The upside is that, well, obviously, it doesn't have a big. We don't have a big impact no matter what on this because we're such a small portion of the overall tax impact, but the school districts have already adopted this, so they're the largest impact, and that would have the most impact for the developers. It's just like we did for our solar. It's a good way for there to be certainty in taxation. So that's your assessed value. It's that is helpful for developers to know kind of going in what they can expect. So that's obviously a benefit and certainly a good way to get developers to take a look at properties, if not actually go forward and develop them. I am curious about the downtown. I mean, have you had, besides just looking for improvements to the facades and things like that on your main drag there, have you had problems? Because it seems to me like most of your storefronts are usually full there. So what is the thinking on Main Street or Pleasantville Road?
More than anything is what costly, but some of them do need windows and, you know, new doors and roof. It starts to get expensive.
And you probably know we have a major streetscape project that we're launching. That's, you know, a 2-year project. We figured we're fixing the streets and the parking and sidewalks. It would provide a little more incentive on top of that to building owners to improve their facades. The whole thing comes together all at once.
All right. Great. So basically, do you have an opinion about this?
I think it's great. I didn't know that this was something that could be done, and I think it's a great idea, so I'm supportive.
Okay. I know how you feel.
You know,
Also
I'm in favor.
Awesome. And same here. Okay, but there are some details that we still need to discuss, so Council Tomadonna, we shall turn to you for some
Well,
comments.
I would just like to be able to have a separate conversation with the village attorney and get a little bit more information about the background that went into this specific law and the concepts included in it. But with this board's direction, if the board is looking in favor of it, I'm happy. Hopefully, the village attorney will be responsive and we can figure out a way to move this forward.
Okay, sounds good. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we will,
Have a draft copy, I believe.
I think so.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
That's a good starting point.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this.
And is this, just one last question, is there, I mean, the size of the property seems like the dispensaries would be kind of large?
Yeah, those would be mega dispensaries.
Is that, no, okay. Have you opted out yet, or we're waiting to hear if that's definite?
We have not, by the way, one of the properties is 90 acres, I believe, is that right, Steve, the big one?
Yeah, 96, yeah.
That would certainly put Briarcliff right smack on that graph of, you know, the 4-leaf or 3-leaf clover.
Yeah, for agriculture, yes, that's,
Green space, as we call it.
absolutely.
We haven't taken it up yet, but we are starting to discuss it internally. I guess we have until the end of the year, so we've still got another 5 months or so.
Okay, sounds good. Keep us posted. Thank you.
We'll do.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, so up next, we have, let's see, where am I up to? Ryder Park Trails. We have 2 members from our Environmental Advisory Committee here tonight, Mitzi Elks and David Margulies. Mitzi, David, and the entire EAC have been advocates for many years. And Mitzi, if you want to come up to the microphone, I don't know if I know you're not presenting, but at least people could see you. They've been for many years advocating for improving lots of trails, and specifically the Ryder Park trails, in an effort to pursue a larger plan for an open space corridor in Ossining. David is also a volunteer with the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. We've heard from him a little bit before, and the Trail Conference has a model for improving trail conditions in communities at a very low cost to the property owners, which in this case, I believe, is the town. David and Mitzi are here tonight with a presentation on how we may be able to apply this model from the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference to Ossining by connecting 2 sections of the Ryder Park trails to make a contiguous trail. So I shall turn it over to you.
Dana, that was an excellent introduction to my introduction, where I really don't need to give an introduction any longer. But thank you for having us. We are very excited to be here in front of you, the town board, and we thank you for having us. So thank you to Dana and Victoria for all your help. And on behalf of the EAC, what we would like to accomplish tonight is to be able to receive your approval to be able to move forward with this project. There are 2 levels of the project where, I just thought I'd give a little intro. I've been on the EAC for 30 years, chair for...
You started when you were 5?
Thank you. Right.
Yes, and before I had children, actually it was, and chair for about 25 to 28 years. We have a wonderful mix of board members, and we also have 2 liaisons, a planning board liaison, a zoning board liaison, Donna Sharrett and David Krieger. respectfully. Also, we have high school members. We have two seniors who are extremely accomplished. One is going on to University of Miami, and Nick, who has been on the EAC, Nicole, and Nick, who has been on the EAC for 8 years. Prior to that, his sister on the EAC for 8 years. So Nick is going on to Boston College, and we wish them well. We have two new high school members, relatively new, Ella and Ben. Ben is summer interning for us. Actually, he helped with this presentation tonight, and you're going to hear from David, obviously. And John Ladd also helped with the mapping. He's an incredible GIS mapper. And we're just all excited to be here. So the goal, as I said, is to receive your approval for, it's a 2-component project. Dana very well outlined it. One component is to create this link, this 420-foot, it's rather short link of a walking path in Ryder Park that would establish an incredible connection between the more popular part of the park that probably I would think we're all familiar with, where there's the pavilion, the parking to the playground, the bathrooms, the water access, the tennis courts, and then in the middle are all the ball fields. And then hidden, tucked away behind the pond is, don't quote me, but it's about 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles of a network of already established walking trails that is really kind of like a hidden jewel of Ossining and Ryder Park for sure, all contained within Ryder Park. And so David, with the help of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, is proposing tonight and has identified this 400 relatively short link that can bring those two parts of the park together. And we would love your approval to be able to move forward with this. And so just a quick intro of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. They are comprised of mainly, of all volunteers. They are volunteers. They have some staff. But what that means is that the work that is done by the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference will be at no cost to the town. And there will be minimal costs associated with maybe some materials that might be needed, might reach $500, if that. So it's really a really cool way to access, create, build trails in Ryder, whether it be in Ryder, you mentioned possibly an open space corridor. We're working on that also as an EAC, and to be able to do it at relatively no cost to the town. And so just as a little introduction about David, met David at a breakout room at a comprehensive plan meeting back in, I don't know, October, September, and heard about, this guy was talking about building trails and the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and I was like, we want to talk. So hence, since November, December, and with your approval, David is now an EAC member, and he is a resident of Ossining. He has an IT management career of over 35 years. He retired about 12 years ago and then went back to his passion of hiking and photography, and 12 years ago actually took course 101 trail maintenance course of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and was introduced to this wonderful organization. Since then, he has continually worked on Ward Pound Ridge preservation. He is on 4 different trail crews that do heavy-duty trail work, not the light stuff. They're really building the trails, and he also more recently has been working on the Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway, which is a really exciting component of this to be discussed another time down the road of the Ossining and the open space corridor. So without further ado, David, we are so fortunate and lucky to have David presenting tonight. And thank you, John, also for the mapping. And Ben, take it away.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Sure.
So first, thank you, Mitzi, for a rather wonderful introduction, and good evening, and thank all of you and the board for listening to this proposal. This is a map of Ryder Park. Just to go over some of the things that Mitzi already talked about. The green outline is the park boundaries. You can see over here is Morningside Drive. This is Ryder Avenue. And over here, North State Road, Terra Rustica, the pizza store, the bagel store, and some other commercial properties that are over here. And then on this side, we have the pavilion and the playground and some parking for the park that's in addition to the parking for the ball fields, which is down here. The peach-colored lines here are all the trails in the park. This is that hidden gem that Mitzi was talking about. This track actually leads down to Morningside Drive, so it is an entry point down the driveway, but there is no parking there. And this is the overall loop that is actually a very nice evening or afternoon walk. Quite pleasant. Starts by the pond, runs across this little bit of road here, and then runs up into this whole wooded area. On the other side, there's actually an interesting path that goes up to some old ruins on the hill above the pavilion, and then down along a stream, back to the road, and then down here to this road, this old road that was, I'm not quite sure why it was constructed, but it's a heavy-duty road designed for multi-ton vehicles. And this yellow piece is the connector that we want to build. It's approximately 420 feet long, which is slightly longer than a city block. I think it would make a wonderful addition to connecting these trails from the area over here where there's some parking and people are aware of the area, and it would let you walk the entire park from one end to the other and extend the amount of trail by just about 50%. That's all very rough because it hasn't been specifically measured, but that's about what we think it would do, and we think the cost to the town would be considerably less than $1,000. It could be less than $500. And the labor and the design work would be done by the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, who has very long experience in doing exactly this kind of thing, and in fact on much larger scales. So our goals tonight are, as Mitzi already said, to ask for your approval to create that trail connector, that's that yellow line, and to make a request for the Trail Conference to assist in the design and build of the connector, which is more or less the mechanism that could be used to get that free support, free services. Just a few pictures. This is a picture of the outer loop. It's a nice wide road width trail and generally pleasant to walk on. At the moment it's a little overgrown, but in general it's pleasant to walk on. This is the beginning of the Pavilion Trail, and As you go up here, there's a stream in here, which actually runs across the road. And there's a kind of waterfall as it goes up the hill, so it's also very pleasant. Just pictures of the water tower. This is actually a road used by the village to access the water tower, and this is on the park side of the water tower. It's just a view to where the connector would hook in. And if you look at the map, what you're really doing is you're looking across here toward where that yellow line would start. This is a picture of the beginning of the Briarcliff Peekskill Trail. The reason I put it here is to give you an idea and perhaps a little bit of a contrast between what the existing trails look like and what the trail that would be built will look like. It's a much narrower tread, and it's really designed strictly for walking. It's not designed for any vehicular traffic of any sort. And this, by the way, was actually built by the Trail Conference and the same crew that would build the connector about a year ago. I guess just before or at the beginning of our wonderful pandemic. Okay, so why do we want to build this connector? I think Mitzi covered a lot of it, but once again, I'll go over it as quickly as I can. I think that it can be a very quick, very inexpensive win for the town, significantly enhancing the value of a town asset, which I think is currently underutilized. It will provide, as I mentioned, a much longer route through the wooded area of Ryder Park, making it more attractive. It will provide parking for using that route through the park, because at the moment, in order to have parking on to get to the other side here, the only parking is down at the ball field over here. So if you're just coming in along this road, there's no way to get your car here in any way. So residents from any other part of the area other than along here on Morningside Road cannot conveniently get to the park. Oops, that's the other thing is, if you remember my comments about North State Road and the somewhat focus on food, the ability to walk through the park and then just go for another block to get lunch at Terra Rustica or one of those places, or maybe get your bagel in the morning, is actually a little bit of enhancement to those values on North State Road, and perhaps just improves the worth of the space. In the longer term, this is sort of a basis for creating or a base for creating the open space corridor that Mitzi mentioned, that hopefully it would connect the county's Briarcliff Peekskill Trail through the park, past the North State Road Business Corridor, and onto New York State's Empire State Trail, adjacent to Route 100. But again, that's another day's conversation. This happens first. A little bit more about the Trail Conference. Well, you may remember a few months ago when I gave the board a presentation about the Trail Conference, New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, but I'll call it the Trail Conference, keep it short. Restoring access to the Briarcliff Peekskill Trail and creating a reroute that we just showed you a picture of. That was done with the partnership, in partnership with and with the approval of the county of Westchester, who owns that land. And the same crew that did that, the same crew chiefs that did that, would do the work to create this very short connecting trail in the park. In fact, one of the two crew chiefs was with me the other day when we walked the trail to try to get measure the distance. You may also remember that at the same meeting, Hank Osborne, one of the Trail Conference's staffers, gave a presentation about the Croton Gorge Trail Stewards Program that the Trail Conference runs and that the town of Ossining sponsors in coordination with Portland and Westchester County. And I believe you're quite aware that it's been very successful. In a more macro scale, New York, New Jersey Trail Conference is a 101-year-old 50c3 volunteer-powered organization that builds, maintains, and protects public trails. It has partnerships at the federal level with 2 states, several counties, including Westchester, and a number of localities, including Ossining, Portland, and the town of Greenberg. Currently, the Trail Conference maintains approximately 2,100 miles of trail throughout the region, and that includes both long-distance trails, like the AT and the Long Trail, and short ones in local parks, like the one we're proposing. Overall, in general, the TC focuses on that building, maintaining, and advocating for trails. Trails are mostly on public land, but also owned by conservation-focused nonprofits. A local example of that is T-Town, where they helped to build the Twin Lakes Trail, which a beaver forced them to morph into the Three Lakes Trail when they flooded the land that the Twin Lakes Trail went across. The Trail Conference also has extensive stewardship and invasive programs that are operated in coordination with a number of government and nonprofit entities. They also create and print maps that any hikers will be familiar with. And in fact, in going through some of my stuff, I recently discovered my Trail Conference Bear Mountain Trail set from 1965, which gives you an idea of how old I am. I'd further like to note that in addition to individual members, there are entities that support the overall mission of the Trail Conference and join as members for a nominal annual fee of $50. I've included the Trail Conference website down at the bottom here so that if anybody who wishes to do some more explanation, because there's an enormous amount of information on the website, can just go there and do so at their own convenience. So I mentioned partnerships and the Trail Conference having partnerships with landowning entities where we do trail maintenance. A primary item tenet of the process is that the landowner always owns the land. Agreement from the landowner is always obtained before any work starts on any given product. This is universal to all phases of all aspects of what the Trail Conference does. Secondly, the Trail Conference has been designing trails for approximately 100 years. They just helped design the first section of the Appalachian Trail in 1922. They're very good at it. Trails and simple structures are designed using principles designed from national standards. The Forest Service has issued some of those standards, and lots of feedback over the years. And the other remark is see item 1. Always, the landowner always gets to approve whatever work is done. Labor is free for these projects, but the materials for the project are supplied by the landowner, the town in this case, using their own purchasing systems. The Trail Conference, in general, does not want to see money from anybody other than perhaps an independent donor. What we need are the materials to get the project done, and that's what we would ask the town, the Parks Department, whoever to provide. Partnerships are flexible because each landowner has individual needs and requirements, and what we seek to do is get trails built. And we want that to work, and we want it to work for both the landowner and the Trail Conference and the public who uses everybody is happy with the result. And finally, it is the expectation when the trail conference enters into a partnership that both partners are committed to a project once, to the completion of a project, once they have embarked on that project. One of the issues, and a big issue, after you build a trail, is how do you get it maintained? This is a very short trail segment, so it's not really as big an issue here as it might be with something like, I don't know, 35 miles of trails in Ward Pound Ridge, or some other, the long trail that goes several hundred miles through New York State. In general, trails are maintained by volunteers using hand tools, the same hand tools that you might use in your garden. The volunteers can come from a variety of sources, and I've listed probably the four most common on the slide here. The first one is that often they come from local Friends of organizations, like the Habitat Stewards that work in Ryder Park. And those organizations are happy to provide volunteers to do the work because they're already there. And it just makes the environment they work in and that they are working toward making better for park visitors, a better environment overall, and keeps it going. Another source, somewhat rarer, but nonetheless, is to recruit volunteers from the web. It's usually done by groups like the Parks Habitat Stewards or other groups that are involved in providing services to a park. The third option is that there is at least one program in Westchester where the local schools and groups partner to have high school students work in the parks. In the program that I'm aware of, it's actually part of the curriculum. So the students get some credit for that work, but that deal is directly negotiated between the groups and the school district, and actually the teachers within the high school, so that whatever is arranged is something that the school district approves, and it's not an issue. But it gives the students a bunch of experience in environmental things, and it provides a temporary workforce of young workers rather than the somewhat older folks like me that are on the trail crews. And it typically provides it during the spring growing season when labor is needed more often, more intensively than perhaps during the rest of the year.
David, we kind of have a long rest of our agenda. Are you getting close to the end of your presentation? I know that you have Melissa here also from the Trail Conference, and I'm just wondering if, you could maybe elaborate a little bit less on the bullet points so that we could get to, a little bit of a discussion and questions from the board.
Okay.
Okay?
Melissa is here to answer questions rather than to directly provide information.
Okay,
So I will breeze through the rest.
thanks.
And actually, there isn't really very much more. The other issue with maintenance is access to the trail connector. Just to show you very briefly, there's this dotted line here, which is the existing road I mentioned. It currently is not readily passable, so in order to make this workable, it would need to be cleared so that one could get to the bottom end of the new trail.
Is that the road that leads to the private house back there? No. Okay, I can't quite figure out where that road is.
So the road that leads to the private house, can you see my?
Yes. Okay, I see.
Is
Got it.
running right here,
I see.
okay?
Yeah.
This is an old woods road that was built. It's really built up. It's built for like multi-construction vehicles.
Okay.
It's got culverts that pass underneath it.
Okay,
At some points, it's 6 feet high.
but that's not the sewer line.
Um,
That's not where the sewer line is.
Where
In the spring, this was clear.
it's allegedly
Yesterday, when I went to walk over it, it was overgrown.
located there.
So we just need to clear it out again to make the rest accessible
Just-
at some point as part of doing the bill.
I know that we talked about this, but just for the board's edification, we do believe there's access to a sewer line back there, which we would need to, there's a right of way back there for the highway department to access a sewer line. So we do need to meet with our highway superintendent to take a look back there to make sure that they would continue to have whatever access they needed. Maybe it's improved access, I'm not sure. So,
I would think actually if they needed access to a sewer line, and I assume it's the lump that goes down the hill from, the Stonegate Road cul-de-sac here,
right,
comes down the hill at an angle, they also would need to get this cleared, so
right,
it's not just us that would need that.
correct.
And also, just kind of as a general point, people walking over a sewer line and we would not have anything else happening should not impact the sewer line. Certainly, I would talk to the highway department to get their agreement and confirmation or not about that, but that is, that would be my experience.
Okay,
Okay, so the next steps, this is pretty much the end, is to just repeat, we'd like board approval to create our proposed trail connector and to approve the town making a request to the trail conference for assistance to design and build the park. And that's kind of it. Melissa is here to answer any questions specifically about the trail conference, and I can try to answer any other questions that you may have.
great, thank you so much. So just off the top, I just would like to ask Melissa, and welcome Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very appreciative of you taking the time, and I know you got to listen to a lot of detail tonight from being here since the start of our meetings. We appreciate it. Is there a standard contract that you generally have with landowners? And if so, I don't think we've seen a copy of that yet. I think that's something that, we would like to review with our council and just have an understanding about, various and sundry subjects such as liability. That would be something that would be of interest, to the town.
Sure. We do have kind of a general memorandum of understanding that we use in situations similar to this, although the scale of this project, we typically, even just like an email with approval from you guys to do the project typically covers this. As far as liability goes, trail conference volunteers are covered through trail conference insurance whenever they're out doing work on trail conference terms.
And do you typically name the landowner as a additional insured? Is that something that would happen? I'm just curious because that's just somewhat standard in our contracts. Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Right. I can go ahead and I can send you that general memorandum of understanding that we typically use in situations.
Okay.
So that you guys can look that over if that's something that you're interested in looking into. I can have that sent over too.
Great. And then, David, you talked about the town paying for materials. What exactly material are you thinking would be paid for?
Over here by the water tower, there's a very small, I don't know, I'll call it a stream, but I think I'm aggrandizing it a little bit. Typically, you can kind of step over it, just going bank to bank. We would put what we call a box bridge there. It's a standard bridge that we've used in any number of parks around the county, and anchored to the ground just to make it even easier to get across. and that would be the cost. There's a design that I had recently, but unfortunately my PC suffered a mini disaster and I was not able to recover that. I can pull it back off of the Trail Conference website, which is
Okay.
where I got it, which is kind of the standard design. Typically, in the past, before COVID, the bridge, which I believe we measured between either 8 or 10 feet, would have cost a little over $100. Those prices have gone up a lot, just because wood prices have gone up. But I would actually ask your folks to price it because we'd be, looking for you to actually do the purchase, and we can give you the specifications.
Okay.
I haven't actually developed specifications because until we have your approval, we weren't ready to do
Okay.
that design.
Okay. No problem. Okay, and then there's another yellow line
That's my question.
on the map. It's right under the little white
I
thing,
thought about
existing
eliminating-
paths.
These are arrows that say, it's showing you existing path. I know, it's confusing.
Oh, it's not a connection. Okay.
It was
Okay,
a
so
test to see if you would think
we're all
it
paying
was-
attention. Yes. Okay. So we can't see the arrows from here.
It's not
Probably
another proposal.
those at home can see it. So it's just to indicate paths. Okay. I mean, theoretically, it would be a shorter little loop, but it looks like a nice idea. Okay. So now that I've asked all of everybody else's questions, sorry about that. Does anybody else have other questions that I didn't ask? Okay.
You were saying something about more parking. Where was that going to be?
Well, the parking already exists. It just provides access to existing parking.
Like by the
There's a
playground.
little bit for the playground and there's a little bit.
Oh, okay. So you're not adding any parking up by the, okay.
No, we're not going anywhere near parking.
And
All
you're
we're
just-
talking
great.
about adding is this little bit of trail.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Well, when the ballparks are in session, it's really kind of difficult to park there.
Where?
So this existing, this proposed trail in opening up that part of the loop would make it more feasible for people to park by the playground, which is certainly
Yeah.
accessible,
Or at the top?
or at the top.
I think we just need bike racks. Okay. Okay. Okay, other questions? Sounds like a great idea. Can't see why we wouldn't do it.
Sounds great. Like
Is
a
that
good
what everybody
absolute-
thinks?
All for it.
absolutely, like, how do you say
Okay.
no to that?
Council Tomadonna?
You may just want to, you had mentioned the highway superintendent.
Yeah.
You-
Yes.
You may just also, obviously, the Parks Department
Yes.
and Dan Ciarcia, the town's consulting engineer, to just have them be involved in this process to make sure everything is,
Yes. We did run it by
covered.
Valerie Menastra, our town
Sorry,
planner.
yes,
We
of
also
course.
ran it by John Hamilton, who didn't see any issues, our building department. And we, but Dan, I think, is a good idea. And Pete, just because of that box bridge that you're talking about, we just want to make sure where that's going to be and make sure that it's not going to be in the way of anything in terms of make access to that sewer line. So that would be, I think, the next step to make sure we're all good with the map and maybe go walk the property with Dan and with Pete. And if that all looks good and there are no issues to contend with, I would say that we would be all on board and we'll just take a look at the contract or the MOU that you had suggested, Melissa, and make sure that we're good from insurance standpoint. And if we are good with all of these things in short order, what would be the timing that you anticipate, David and or Melissa? This
I would have to get back to the trail crew. There's always a pile of work to do at the moment. We've got some extensive work going on upper reaches of the Briarcliff Peekskill Trail. So we got a significant donation. The Trail Conference got a significant donation to do a series of jobs up there. Tomorrow, some work is happening north of Furnace Dock Road. So once you actually give us your approval, and we'll bring it up to the trail crew managers and see when we can schedule it and get back to you. frankly, it won't interfere with anything because there won't, assuming, it's agreed that the sewer access is not an issue. But it won't interfere with the normal operations of the park because nobody goes there. And we won't be working anywhere where people would normally be, so.
Sometimes our cross-country crews, our cross-country team uses those trails to train. The high school cross-country team uses the back trails to train. Yeah.
But we won't be on those trails, we'll
Right.
actually be on this doing work.
Sure.
So you won't see us anywhere, except possibly while the bridge is being built, we
Mm-hmm.
could be just by the bottom end of the water tower.
Okay.
That would be the only place we would be.
So with a couple of I's dotted and T's crossed, I think generally the board is in favor of this project, and I'm sure that also in favor of the $50 membership fee. I'm guaranteeing you that everybody here is in favor of that. No? Oh, I'm looking at Councilman Wiltshire. He's not sure. Okay.
I think we may already be members by virtue of the
The stewards.
stewards programs.
Program?
That's something that we can
Okay.
double check on.
Yes.
I just got one
Yeah.
thing I
Okay.
want to ask.
Yes.
I have seen those, he's talking about like an 8-foot bridge. I have, they make them, if you have trees that you have to cut down, and they use them to make those bridges. Are there any there you have to cut?
Typically, we don't first of all, we don't have anybody who's authorized to cut down trees. Even our sawyers are not authorized to cut down trees. So that's the first issue. The second issue is it's actually for such a small, short bridge, it's actually easier just to buy commercial lumber. It's only typically a 2x10, two 2x10s are the two biggest pieces of lumber that are used. They're used as the long pieces that hold it all up. And then everything else is smaller wood. So it's not really very extensive. I have been on projects like up at Minnewaska State Park where they use telephone poles to cross as the basis for a bridge to cross a river. But, that would be such overkill here that, it would make no sense.
You're right, not for an 8-foot.
Yeah, exactly. A telephone pole is like 30 feet high.
It's an excellent question, but can I
You have
just
to come and
address
use the microphone.
Oh, sorry. It's an excellent question, but can I just address the question about the town engineer and walking the trail and all that? David, correct me if I'm wrong. Another approach to consider is if you grant the trail conference the ability to design, or present a design, or I don't know if I'm using the right words,
I
but
see.
but then Dan would certainly be someone invited to walk the trail and review any designs. So I'm just not sure which
see, which
cart
order.
before the horse there is.
I see.
I just wanted to make that point.
We'll find out which cart before which horse, and then we'll go.
David can
Okay.
answer that, or Melissa.
I just as a comment, if you are looking at walking where we're proposing to put the trail, I would ask that it might be helpful if you invited me, or probably me, because I know where we're looking to put it. And, I could review things with the person who was there. I could also get one of our crew leaders down, perhaps, to do it at the same time. But that would probably be more of a scheduling issue.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll review the MOU, and we will then follow up with next steps with David and Melissa, if everybody's okay with that. I don't know that we have to do anything except for maybe approve the MOU before we would move on to the next steps, and then we could do that at our next meeting, potentially, if we can get everything together by July 27th. So hopefully we can work in that direction, and then we can go from there. Does that sound good? Any other questions before we say thank you? No more questions? Okay, thank you very much, and we look forward to being in touch with you quite soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for the great presentation, and I want a copy of that picture. Is that one of your photos, David?
Yes.
Beautiful. Good night.
You can buy James' book and it's in there.
Okay. All right, thanks so much. Okay, have a good night. Thanks, Melissa. You really hung out. Okay, next up. Whew. Last year, the town board enacted a local law to allow outdoor dining permits for restaurants in the town due to COVID-19 capacity limits. With the expiration of all executive orders relating to COVID-19, including capacity limits on restaurants, these temporary permits do not apply anymore. However, the governor announced last week that aspects of the executive orders which helped facilitate outdoor dining for restaurants would remain in effect. Although it is certainly clear that the tone the governor is conveying to the state is in support of outdoor dining, it is not evident that the new provisions in state law to continue outdoor dining past the end of COVID-19 state of emergency necessarily apply to the town or our temporary outdoor dining permits. I'm going to ask Council Tom Madonna to explain in a bit more detail before we start our conversation, but this discussion tonight is an opportunity for the board to consider whether or not we want to follow the governor's lead with more temporary solutions for outdoor dining, which, just to remind everybody, we put into effect in an emergency situation, or if it makes more sense to explore more long-term solutions with individual establishments. So I turn it over to you, Council O'Donnell.
I don't really know what else to say. That was an excellent recap. Yes, so what we were faced with, the board was faced with last June, is after all of the restaurants were shut down, they were reopened again for outdoor dining only. And so in an effort to put a mechanism in place that would not require, under normal circumstances, the establishment would go back to the planning board to get amended site plan approval to authorize the outdoor dining. They would look at where it's going to be. They would look at noise. They would look at if it's going to be in a sidewalk, how does it affect pedestrian access, all of those types of site plan issues. But under the circumstances that were presented at the time and the efforts being made by this board and the town to try to help establishments under those circumstances, this temporary outdoor dining permit system was established in consultation with the town planner and the town building inspector. And it's only for a period of 45 days at a time, although you can do multiple ones. But as the supervisor mentioned, one of the aspects is that in order to be entitled to it, and this is, I'm going to quote, you need to be able to establish that due to a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare, the establishment cannot utilize any or all of the designated indoor space for service of patrons such that there is a need to provide outdoor dining. So the intent was to compensate for what first was 0% indoor dining, and then as that percentage slowly increased over time, to level it out. So at no point was the intent to be able to have more than the capacity of what 100% indoor capacity would have looked like. And so that was the framework that this came to be under the circumstances that we were presented with a year ago. Fast forward, obviously, when quite suddenly, at the end of June, we all learned that the state of emergency was going to expire and it was not going to be renewed. And with that came this presumption that there was this risk, this public health risk. So once and obviously it's positive that we've moved away from that and it's been determined that the state of emergency is no longer necessary. But at the same time, with the removal of the state of emergency, so came with it, like I said, the presumption that there was this risk that facilitated the need for and to allow outdoor dining in these establishments. So now here we are, and so the building inspector, in consultation with myself, had determined that it was going to be more appropriate for, if these establishments wanted to continue to do outdoor dining on a more long-term basis, that we would certainly facilitate with them and have discussions, but to look at the more long-term options for that, including obtaining amended site plan approval. And that was actually one of the aspects of the law too, and something that this board actually discussed in depth, which was if you get however many permits over the period of a year, then it's indicative of a more long-term permanent use as opposed to the temporary nature of this, which was what it was intended to be. So if what the board ultimately settled on was if you had applied for 5 or more permits over the course of a year, so that's for 45 days each, then you couldn't get any more permits and you had to go for site plan approval. Now, I don't know what the establishments in the town are currently at in terms of their permit numbers, but it's, what's that?
I said, I don't know either.
Uh,
Yeah,
But
I'm not sure.
I have to, if we're not at 5, it's got to be close, given that the law's been in effect for about a year now. So we were at that point, and then last week, and the governor, as the supervisor mentioned, sorry, fast forward, announced that a law had been passed which pretty much enacted permanently, or not permanently, for a period of a year, what had been in one of the executive orders. So when the governor allowed outdoor dining to resume last June of 2020, they also announced that the State Liquor Authority would extend licenses to areas that were beyond what was permitted previously, specifically municipal spaces and other private property if there was some sort of arrangement. So this isn't necessarily applicable here because we're not dealing with municipal space or other private property. We're dealing with the spaces of the individual property owners. But the intent was clearly, as it was conveyed from the state, to help these restaurants continue to recover and to continue to be able to provide dining in an environment that most people have grown to feel more comfortable in, and to provide that little extra boost of business that may be beneficial to restaurants that are still really struggling to get back up on their feet. So in light of all of that, board, what do you want to do? So there are a couple of ways we can handle this. We can do a quick just blurb. I would have to work through the details, but we could do something that just kind of mirrors for as long as the governor's law remains in effect. Right now, it's for a period of a year. That could be extended further. I don't know what will happen in the future. I don't know if Councilman Meyer has any insider info.
I do not. Try to find out.
Yeah. That might be an easier way to approach this rather than trying to restructure this entire law that a lot of time went into, especially because, as usual, we're up against another deadline because the building inspector had determined that the need for the temporary permits was no longer authorized by the law. So the establishments in the town currently have until I believe, August 1st to remove their outdoor dining areas. So if the board were going to, nothing's going to be decided by August 1st naturally because you have to do a local law and this would have to be subject to further consideration. But if that were something that were being facilitated down the line, we could probably talk to the building inspector about holding that in abeyance while the town board is pursuing this.
Any thoughts out of the box? Otherwise, I'll share some of mine. Anybody?
You start.
Okay, so I think that what we are getting some feedback from some of the restaurant owners that there is some, there's still people who would rather be outside than inside. So, I mean, I think ultimately this balance between outside and inside still needs to equal a total of whatever that 100% is, maximum capacity inside. Just as it does, as we currently have it established. I think it's interesting to think about if we're already maxed out at the 5 times 45 days or not, or if that got a delayed start, because of just when the law was enacted and when, because we were in the pandemic. I'll just throw up my hands and say that. In the middle of a pandemic. I think it would be good to support our local businesses to the extent that we can. But I also think that the better solution would be for them to apply. So I wonder if there's some kind of like a bridge or something that we could do with the recommendation that they go before the planning board and make a proposal that would be long-term, longer lasting, because I think one of the issues that we're concerned about is that this is a slippery slope and could be used as a I don't want to say workaround because it gets me in trouble, but as a workaround or whatever to, achieve something that maybe should really be before the planning board to contemplate. So, I mean, it seems to me, again, the intention of the governor was to make it easier for restaurants to achieve this. And I don't know about any of you, but if you've gone out to restaurants, I know that, in my opinion, I much prefer to sit outside still than sit inside,
Absolutely.
right?
With you.
Right, and so it seems like this is still an issue, right? People are still rather, please, could you seat me outside at first? That's my first choice. And if I have to go inside, okay, but I'm less comfortable doing so, and maybe I don't even feel like staying. So it seems, again, like, is this gonna last forever? No. Should it be for one more year during this time when the governor has basically said, let's give it another year? Should it be a bridge or something like that? And so I don't know, I'm looking at you.
Well,
for
that's kind
suggestions.
of why I think the better approach would be to have it mirror the state law to a certain respect. One of the concerns that the building inspector and I had discussed is the slippery slope, because now that we've all lived through this experience, and what the restaurants had said is now the Delta variant, that's the risk, but it's also in light of the fact that the state of emergency had been lifted during that time period. So if we allow the risk to be whatever is happening at that moment, there's really always going to be something, whether it's the flu or whatever variant of the flu. So I think that was the concern that we were confronted with when we were figuring out how to handle it. So if we mirror it to a certain extent with the governor's directives, then there's a way to substantiate, I don't know if that's the right word, given that to a large extent, the risk that we were talking about was previously associated to his state of emergency that was in effect. But you could also do something like give them a year, or give them until the fall, but with the understanding that there's going to be a drop dead date, and at some point in time, this is going to have to be a permanent solution that requires proper approvals. We've had some restaurants that have currently been before the planning board and got site plan approval for outdoor seating, but didn't address this. And, presumably that was because it was already separately authorized by the code. But that's something that should really be looked at from a health, safety, and welfare perspective, if it's going to be permanent.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, what do we have, five restaurants, 4 restaurants?
Right,
We don't have a lot of restaurants. So, if we can communicate to them that our preference would be for them to go through the process of appearing before the planning board and coming up with an actual longer-term plan, convey that this interest to the planning board also, maybe that would be another way, that we could, again, some kind of a bridge to that. Because, again, if we, is the idea that we would just extend, so instead of 5 times 45, we're going to offer 10 times 45, or 6
I don't
times
even know
45,
if
or
that would work, because
Right.
you still don't have that unless there's another justification.
Right.
I don't know if you have that risk element. So I think it might be easier to put in a permanent law with a sunset clause along the lines of the state law that almost supersedes this concept, to the extent that this law that was enacted by the governor and the state legislature remains in place. Because to try to rework that entire temporary outdoor dining permit structure, to not just make it a free-for-all,
Right.
because we're still dealing with a rather narrow set of circumstances, but those certain provisions, the risk, the requirement to not have it exceed 100%, which it seems like we would still want to require, that was all put in there to make sure this wasn't just, anyone could do it because they didn't want to get site plan approval. And we actually ultimately contemplated it to be used potentially for different purposes. If someone had a fire, if someone had some other sort of issue that was restraining their ability to use their indoor space, this gave them a mechanism. So we contemplated it being broader than that, but really the focus and the intent was because of the pandemic.
Right. So it's the public perception of risk.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I don't exactly know how to,
I mean, I could play around with it and see if there's
I just don't, whatever might be the easier, more straightforward path to get there, I think.
Sounds like mirror, but have a sunset clause. That's what I'm hearing.
I think so.
Okay, so generally
Yeah, I'm good with that.
favorable for,
Yeah, I'm generally favorable, but I'm wondering, you know, some people, how long, you know, until December or whatever, how, you know, then they gotta move this stuff because the sidewalks have to be cleaned. And
Well, I don't think anybody is on, on North State Road, I don't believe anybody's on a sidewalk.
well,
Everybody's like either in their parking lot space or there's courtyard space, but I don't know that anybody's on a public sidewalk. No, not in town, not in the town. In the village, yes, but not in the town. Everybody, it's North State Road and, you know,
well, actually, I was thinking about the village,
okay,
because now that you say it.
yeah.
Because I know that, what's that vegan restaurant? They're all out in the,
Right, yeah, no, I mean, in the village is definitely a different, slightly different,
they'll have
different
to-
issue.
they have to do their thing there. That's
Yeah.
up to them. Okay.
And I guess we can suggest if the restaurant is looking to, you know, maintain having that they should be going and
Exactly.
talking to the planning board sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
You know, like if it's on your mind that you want to, you know,
This is a better permanent
Continue
solution,
this.
right,
And back
you
to
know,
what
you
were
should be
saying, it's
working
fine,
toward, you know, like
so.
if you're thinking about a permanent, bigger outdoor space, then you should be talking to the planning board now and starting that process. If you understand that this is gonna be sunsetted and taken down whenever the governor decides it's time, then fine, we'll continue this way.
Is there anything we could do, though? Say that happens, the governor ends it August 1st, somebody has, they're going for their permit with the planning board, and it's still pending.
yeah.
You know, is there a temporary solution
Sure.
there?
Yeah, we could say as long as you have an application submitted that you're diligently pursuing before X date or before, you know, whatever law is, if it expires or is revoked or, you know.
Right.
There's certainly language we can put in there to that extent.
Right. That was shorter than the last conversation, thank you, okay.
So, sorry, just
Okay, yes,
just to circle back around. So perhaps at the board's next meeting on the 27th, you could call for a public hearing to be held at your first legislative session. I'm not sure what the exact date is. And then we can put it on for work session the week in between and I'll have a draft of something for the board to review.
Sounds good, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
All right, and next up, we have public comment on agenda items only. And since I can't see who is here from our public, is there anybody here on Zoom?
We do have a couple of folks on Zoom. So if there's anybody who wants to speak, please raise your hand. And what's for a phone? Star 9 for
Star
hand
six?
raising?
Star 9? Star 6?
I think star 6 is on mute. Let's Google it very quick.
Star 9? Star 9. To raise your virtual phone hand.
Raise your virtual phone hand. I don't know. Yes, star 9 for raising your hand for our one call-in listener. You can hit star 9 if you wanted to say something. But it seems as if we don't have anybody raising their hands, so
Okay. In that case,
Okay.
Martha Quiddy, our deputy town clerk, please take us through our board resolutions.
Approval of minutes, regular meeting, June 21st, 2021. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the June 21st, 2021 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Approval of minutes, special meeting, July 6th, 2021. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the July 6th, 2021 minutes of the special meeting as presented.
Motion?
So move.
Second.
I think we had one absence, yes? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody, no? Everybody was here? Oh, okay. Maybe turn,
Grab in.
I don't think you were. That was a Monday night meeting.
there was a Monday night
Yes,
meeting.
yes,
That's what I
yes.
was thinking.
So,
Okay, I thought it was the July 6th
Abstain
meeting.
from
Okay,
June 21st.
okay,
Right,
so,
put me in as the other one then.
so we're gonna go back to an abstention for, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't, you can still vote on a meeting's minutes even if you weren't there. I'm just saying, it's.
I'm sure
it's
he
open.
watched the video.
And then review the minutes for accuracy.
Yes, exactly. Okay, okay, so we'll put you down for an abstention for that first one? Okay,
Okay with me.
fantastic. Okay, so all those in favor of the minutes for the special meeting July 6th? Aye. Okay, just checking.
Okay. Approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 13th, 2021, in the amount of $1,050,980.19.
Motion?
Ouch. Yes, so moved.
Second.
So quite a large voucher run this week, and that is due in large part to the fact that there was a fifth Tuesday in June. So we have not paid vouchers in 3 weeks. Additionally, this voucher run includes our July IMA payments to the Village of Austining, our August health insurance, and first payment on the McCarthy Drive Rehabilitation Project. These are all big ticket items that add up, but certainly bring necessary, planned, and budgeted services to our residents and employees. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Okay. Personnel resignation. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining accepts with regret the resignation of Karina Scotia from the position of confidential secretary to the supervisor effective July 8th, 2021.
Motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay. So last week, Karina Scorsia from my office informed us that she would be resigning effective July 8th. We thank Karina for her service to the town. She was often the one behind our creative Facebook posts and graphics, and we wish her all the best in her future endeavors. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Okay. Contract Legion Fireworks Company. Whereas the town board previously authorized the supervisor to sign a contract with Interstate Fireworks Incorporated to provide a fireworks display to the town on September 3rd, 2021, with the rain date of September 10th, 2021. And whereas the supervisor never signed the agreement with Interstate because Interstate would not agree to certain terms proposed by the town, and whereas the town subsequently entered into negotiations with Legion Fireworks Co. to provide the fireworks display on terms more favorable to the town, and now therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby authorizes the supervisor to sign an agreement with Legion Fireworks Co. to provide a fireworks display to the town of Austining on September 3rd, 2021, with the rain date of September 10th, 2021, in the form provided by council to the town, and be it further resolved, the supervisor is no longer authorized to enter into an agreement with Interstate Fireworks Incorporated for said fireworks display.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Ratification of agreement, employee number 101017. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining ratifies the agreement between the town and employee number 101017 dated July 8th, 2021.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Finance Capital Project number 2021-5231, 2021 Community Center Kitchen Town Nutrition. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining authorizes opening a 2021 capital project number 2021-5231 entitled 2021 Community Center Kitchen for the Town Nutrition Department with a project budget of $260,000 for design and renovation of the community center kitchen. The project will be funded from federal CDBG grant funds and general fund balance.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
So the town received grant funds from the Community Development Block Grant funding stream last year, which is through the Urban County Council that the county runs for us, but they're ultimately federal dollars for a renovation of the senior center kitchen. We just signed the contract with the architect on the project, and now we're putting the final financial mechanics in place with a capital project account so that we can accurately account for the expenses. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
A resolution of support and affirming partnership local government efficiency program grant. Whereas the Village of Austining has informed the Town of Austining that the village intends on submitting a grant application to the New York State Department of State's Local Government Efficiency Program to request funding to study the consolidation of firehouses in the Austining Fire Department. And whereas the potential outcome of the study will provide for improved facilities for the community's emergency responders and would at the same time decrease long-term capital and operational costs for Austining taxpayers, and whereas via an intermunicipal agreement, a majority of the unincorporated town of Austining receives fire protection from the Austining Fire Department. so the town and its taxpayers stand to benefit from the potential cost savings and increased efficiencies that would be identified in the firehouse consolidation study. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Austining expresses its support of the village of Austining's application to the local government efficiency program and affirms its intent to serve as a partner in the grant application, committing $6,250 in matching funds from the town towards the project, and be further resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to sign a letter of support for the village of Austining's grant application and execute any necessary documents to satisfy the grant program requirements.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So the Village of Austining requested that the town sign on as a partner for a grant application to study the potential consolidation of firehouses in the Austining Fire Department. It is our understanding that this study will hopefully lead to improved facilities for our dedicated volunteer first responders, in addition to savings for both the town and the village. Most of our current firehouses are historic buildings and were certainly not built to support the modern needs of today's firefighters and apparatus. We recognize it is so important to invest in our top-rate volunteer fire department, support their needs in the long term, and we believe this study is a first step to accomplishing those goals. And we often partner with the village on grant applications, and usually it's us asking them for support, but in this case, it is them asking us for support. So hopefully we will get that support. So thank you to the village and our fire chiefs for identifying this important project to be completed. I know I'm happy to support. Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Monthly reports. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of June 2021. Tax receiver, town clerk, Dale Cemetery, town highway department, and town supervisor.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and is there anybody here from the public who would like to address the board on anything tonight?
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, again, please raise your virtual hand or hit *9 so we can allow you to speak if you're still in the audience. Not seeing anybody?
Going once, going twice,
Last chance.
and no.
Hands
Okay, I
right
think it's.
now.
I think is it faster or slower to go your virtual hand or your real hand?
Yeah.
Which is faster? I don't know. Okay. All right. So with that, I ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel, personnel, collective bargaining, and contracts.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be off next week, woohoo, with no meeting scheduled on Tuesday, July 20th. I hope of course that means we all have these longer meetings, so thank you for bearing with us. I hope everyone enjoys a summer night off, and we will see you back here for a legislative session on Tuesday, July 27th. Have a wonderful couple of weeks. Good night, everybody. Awesome.